Comic Book HQ, episode number 41, starts in 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Comic Book HQ podcast. I'm your host as usual, Jared Gafford, and we have another very special creator interview for you guys today. This one is going to be a little bit different. We are definitely going to get into comics and things like that, but this is going to be a lot of topics that are going to be covered in this podcast, and I'm super excited about it. We have writer, creator, comedian, actor, pretty much jack of all trades, and Webby Award winning creator Brennan Lee Mulligan on the show. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Jared. Thanks so much for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I am so stoked to have you on. You and I both have incredibly busy schedules, and so I'm always really excited when we're able to make something work and finally get you on the show.
You know, what can I say, man? We're jet setters. We're bouncing all over the place. We got lots of people to talk to, and to find an hour in the day to sit down and talk about the nerdy stuff we care about, it means the world. So I'm
Absolutely.
glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, for people that may not be familiar with Brennan Lee Mulligan, he is a huge part of College Humor, which is the channel on YouTube and all the sketches and the different things that they do. But for people who may not be familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe just kind of your history, how you got into doing things like writing and acting and those kind of things.
Sure thing, man. I'll give you my rundown, my pedigree. So I got my start. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to go back in reverse order. So we'll start at the most recent and go back. So I'm currently a cast member and writer at College Humor, where I, write and appear in sketches for the YouTube channel, as well as working on a lot of the shows that we do for our streaming service, Dropout, including I'm the Dungeon Master of Dimension 20, which is our actual play D&D show that we do there. Which is available on dropout.tv. Prior to working at College Humor, I was a performer and teacher at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, both in Los Angeles and New York. So I've been doing comedy for a long time there. And I got my start writing live-action, role-playing adventure games. So writing LARPs and running a LARP summer camp in upstate New York called the Wayfinder Experience. So
that's amazing.
I'm also a author of Strong Female Protagonists, which is a webcomic that you guys can go look up right now at strongfemaleprotagonist.com, which I created along with Molly Ostertag. We're the co-creators of that, which got distributed through IDW, and that's my little comics pedigree.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's take it back to you're a kid and you're growing up, and you and I are kind of in the same generation. What was really the stuff that you were into when you were a kid, 10, 12, 14 years old? I mean, you and I, we're huge nerds, I mean, we love sci-fi, fantasy, role-playing, comic books, superheroes, all that stuff. But what was really the first thing that kind of lit that match underneath you when it comes to your geekdom?
Oh, man. What a question. I think either my dad or my mom are fond of saying, like, I didn't have a chance. And like, I was a nerd from the word go. There was no avoiding it. When I was so I grew up in New York, part of the time in the city until I was 4 years old, and then my mom moved upstate, and then I would visit my dad in the city, and then my mom was in this little town called High Falls, upstate. I'm a second-generation comedian and comic book writer. So my mom was a comic book writer, and my dad was a comedian, and so I got it both barrels. I think this is my theory, and I'll posit this to you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think every single geek starts at the most tender age, when you're 3 or 4 years old. I think everybody starts on dinosaurs or animals.
Yeah.
And I think that evolutionarily, that's like single cell organisms at the base of the evolutionary tree. Like the first thing you get about is that. So when I was a really little kid, I would run through the Museum of Natural History in New York naming all the different animals there. And then very quickly, my mom is like a Celtic and Arthurian scholar.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, I got like fairy tales and old Celtic legends. I've been steeped in like fantasy and Tolkien, but also like folklore and Joseph Campbell stuff since I was little, since I was like, pre-verbal. So that was really like being steeped in it from such a young age.
Yeah.
I never made the conscious choice to pursue nerd stuff.
Yeah.
Really what happened is the kids around me got to a certain age of awareness where they suddenly figured out like, oh, Brennan's a nerd. And then those charges got levied against me. And I was like, really? Why? Like, aren't we all excited about the Knights of the Round Table? And then it was like, oh, we're extremely not. So, so then it got, you find out a lot about yourself, I think, based on the reactions of the people around you. And so I discovered that I was a nerd, at a tender age.
No, you said to posit that. I 100% agree with everything you just said. I can remember, I mean, we're from the generation of Land Before Time and the original Jurassic Park. And so, I mean, even for me as a kid, like I freaking loved dinosaurs. And to me, I think like when we're that age, and tell me if you maybe felt the same way, like, obviously dinosaurs were real, but when you're a kid, did you kind of just feel like it was like, oh man, this is like dinosaurs almost felt like a mythology in themselves, which for me kind of felt cool. Like, oh man, there's these legends of these dinosaurs. And then you get older and you're like, oh yeah, dinosaurs are real. But did you have that feeling at all? Like, oh man, these awesome creatures that aren't around anymore are just so neat.
I think that, there is something magical about dinosaurs that I think honestly has to do with the fact that humans were never around at the same time.
Yeah.
Like when you think about animals, there's always this idea of like, oh, there's like these animals live in like these wild places away from cities or away from other humans. But when dinosaurs were kicking around, they were fully in charge. Whenever you see a T-Rex, he's never like losing his habitat to like urban encroachment. He's always like, I'm the king of the lizards. So I don't know. You respect that. I have a lot of respect for dinosaurs, but they aren't borderline mythological, even though they used to exist, because no one's ever seen a living dinosaur, which is what the whole premise of things like Jurassic Park are. Is they feel
except
like,
Jeff Goldblum. Yeah,
except Jeff Goldblum, but that's sort of unfair because he's seen everything because he's an enlightened being.
Right. He's been around forever.
Forever, since the dawn of time. So, he's got an advantage. He's got a leg up on everybody. But I would say, to answer your question more up front, the real crossing of the bridge from like, generally speaking, like a kid who like reads books during recess and is like kind of garden variety nerdy into like deep nerd stuff was when I was 10 years old. I was taken out of public school and started homeschooling, which, talk about nerd stuff. And started homeschooling. And my mom was kind enough to introduce me to Dungeons and Dragons. She found a group that was like playing D&D. I jumped into my first game and never looked back. And I've been playing D&D for the past 21 years, more regular than I can imagine. Now doing it for a living, it's still my favorite activity. And there's a part of me, anytime people want to hang out, that always wants to go, well, what we could do. We could play D&D. Yeah.
And with 21 years in your back pocket, I'm sure you could probably just, hey, I've got this one shot we could play tonight.
Well, that's the thing is, it's like at this point, especially playing a casual home game, it's like, it's second nature. There's playing D&D and especially like running a game of D&D so visibly now online. I get a lot of like questions from people about preparation. Yeah. And it's really that like, there's an element when you've run so many games where it's not that preparation is ever a bad idea, but there's just sort of like a jazz-like quality to it where it's I don't really need the sheet music anymore. Like I can get a loose idea, people will make some characters and we can just start.
So you're 10 years old and you're playing D&D for the first time. Is that really where your love of writing started as well?
I started writing very early on, even prior to D&D, really, part of having a mom who's a writer was, when I would like make up stories as a little kid, I got the encouragement and direction of like, even before I could read and write, my mom would like write the stories I told down. And I would be like, oh, wow, like that's cool that thing I made up now like lives on that page. So I've been writing for a long, long time. Yeah. And, having worked on SFP for a long time, the webcomic that I do with Molly Ostertag, it's like writing has been such a huge part of my life for so long that I couldn't even trace like a choice of like when I was like, I want to start to pursue writing. Yeah. I've been writing for forever, but definitely made conscious choices of like what type of writing to pursue, both when I started writing LARPs and then later when I moved into doing a webcomic.
Yeah. And you've also worked on video games as well, correct?
Loosely. I've never been an actual professional video game writer, but I have worked and done Punch Up and done some like uncredited like video game help because I have a lot of friends that are really successful, cool people in the video game industry. Who like, it's like, oh, well, Brennan would be good for X, Y, or Z, which is always the fun thing about how interconnected these different industries are, where if you're good enough at one thing, you might get a call from people that need that one thing that you know how to do.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about how growing up in a house where your mom is a writer just kind of almost made it easier for you to be like, hey, I've got these stories, let's do something with them. On the other end of the spectrum, being that your dad was a comedian, I mean, unobjectively, you're an extremely funny guy. I've been following College Humor for as long as I can remember, and you and even all of your castmates on Dimension 20 and things like that. Growing up around a dad who was a comedian, I mean, what was that like? Was it, and this is something I've always been curious about actually, is I'm not friends with a ton of stand-up comedians, and most of the stand-up comedians that I am friends with are like first generation comedians, so they never like had to grow up around that. But I mean, was home just a riot all the time, or was it the opposite? Was your dad super serious when he wasn't on stage?
No, I had a very funny family, and there's a lot of humor in the family, even from people that are not professional comedians. But that being said, on my mom and dad's side of the family, there's people that work in comedy and performance. My grandfather, Jack Mulligan, performed like musical theater. Oh, wow. My Aunt Susan on my mom's side of the family was a stand-up comedian for many, many years. And also just everyone I know. It's one of those things I think that a lot of comedians would be the first to admit, which is that being a professional comedian or being a comedic performer does require a sense of humor, but it also requires a lot of other stuff. Like I would say just a profound sense of shamelessness of like, oh, yeah. of like, I belong on a stage. People should hear what I have to say. So like a lot of the people, I surround myself with pretty much exclusively funny people. And some of the funniest people I know have zero desire to ever get up on a stage or in front of a camera and perform. Yeah. So I would say, my whole family is an extremely, not only a very funny family, but also, very smart family. The dinner table conversations growing up were, as often as they were, funny or comedic, there's also a lot of like talking about big ideas and talking about stories and how they work, which I am very, very thankful for, because the other thing I went to college for other than screenwriting was philosophy, which is a lot of stuff that I've done too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think like comedy, especially like look at like a comedy movie that comes out. Like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, this is supposed to make me laugh. But then I look at a movie like, let's take The Big Sick for example, which I think is an incredible comedy, but it also has so much real life in it, and it's got moments of drama, and it's got moments of it just is very well rounded in its comedy. And let's be real, there's only so many dick and fart jokes that you can tell before it just starts to get old. And I think that really the best comedians are brilliant. And I think sometimes people as consumers look at a comedian and like I don't know how many times I've heard a comedian say, yeah, people come up to me all the time and tell me to tell them a joke. And it's like, that's not it, you know. Like that's not how this works. Like I spent hours slaving in my apartment or my house writing these jokes and testing them on people to see if they were actually funny and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of brain power that goes into writing successful comedy, and I think that is so clear when you talk about College Humor and just how successful they've been. I mean, there's really, when I think about like online comedy presences, there's really two, in my opinion. There's College Humor and there's Funny or Die. And I think that those are the two kind of powerhouses. How did you get connected with College Humor? I mean, I know you were at UCB prior to that. Is that kind of what got your foot in the door there, or how did that relationship start?
So the short answer to that is yes. The reason being is that I got referred for applying for the job through basically having performed improv at UCB New York in a long time and then moved out to LA. I got referred for when they were auditioning new cast members and made a submission and didn't get it. I submitted to be a cast member of College Humor and did not get the job. And then about a month or two after that, Mike Trapp was looking to start up full longer episodes for Actually, and was looking for someone to come in and write questions for the show. And so I had submitted. So it's one of these things where, especially for people that are listening to your podcast that are trying to get involved in these creative endeavors, it's like, you know, it's always so circuitous. It was not this thing of like, oh, I was performing a show at UCB and, you know, a manager or a talent scout in the audience was like, we got to get that kid in the room. It was like years and years of doing shows that develop like a reputation. You know what I mean? It's like, so that when people are having a conversation about like, oh, who should we ask for a packet or who should we ask for a thing? You know, a bunch of names are getting thrown out and someone's able to go like, oh, you know, I think Brennan just moved here. He's a good, you know, like it's never like, God, look at that one performance. That's the make or break performance. Right. It's like years of grinding. And then someone goes like, oh, this person's got a good record. And even then, like not getting it. And then a couple months later, getting brought in at part-time to write these like nerd questions, which is like this very niche thing. Yeah. And then it was like months of doing that. And then they put me on Troopers, which is now premiering on Dropout as well, which is this big, awesome, effects-heavy story that we're bringing like this beloved franchise from College Humor sketches back and giving it the full story treatment, which is really awesome. And then Zach Oyama stepped down as a cast member right when I was working on these two, on Troopers and Actually at the same time. Yeah. And basically they were like, well, Brennan, you jump on in here and, you know, become a cast member. Awesome. It was wild.
Yeah. So you've done a lot of different kinds of writing, whether it's for comic books or scripted things or more sketches or improv, all sorts of different things. What do you find are let's just take two, for example. What do you find are the biggest differences when you're writing something that is scripted and people have lines that they have to memorize versus writing something that's more improv, sketch-based, where people are kind of given and more of an outline and then just told to kind of go with it?
I think that whenever I'm writing, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but whenever I'm sitting down to write something, whether it's a sketch or a long narrative thing or whatever, the medium that you're writing in dictates a lot of the tone and emotion and what it is you're trying to achieve with that. This might sound overly pragmatic or like goal oriented, but like a sketch has a very different goal than a movie or a television series, right? Yeah. So when you're sitting down to write a sketch, it's sort of this idea of like, hey, we're only going to live in this idea for 3 to 5 minutes. So let's squeeze every bit of blood out of this and really just focus on the comedy. Just like try to hit as many laughs as you can. Yeah. When you're doing something like Dimension 20, which is, 30 hours of content to a season, right? You need to inject a lot of heart and a lot of like character, because as much as people love laughing and as funny as Dimension 20 is, if people don't care about the characters, they can't watch a heartless kind of like bloodless game for that long. Which is, I think, to your point before where you were talking about like when comedy is meaningful, or like, you know, like comedians, what does it mean for a comedian to be brilliant? Or what does it mean for a comedian to be prescient or timely or talk about something important?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I talk about this a lot when I'm teaching improv. Comedy is kind of like a meta language, right? It's this lens through which you can talk about anything. Like you can look at any topic or anything going on in the world and attempt to view it through the lens of comedy and find the comedic juxtapositions that are, you know, within that topic or subject.
Yeah.
So as a comedian, what you bring your talent to really has to do with what you care about. Like, in other words, you know, to put it more bluntly, you can find jokes anywhere.
Yeah.
And if what inspires you the most is fart jokes and dick jokes, hey, more power to you. God knows I have died laughing at those jokes. That's awesome. But I think that there's also something when you can create a piece of narrative that has a lot of heart, and then you're also finding comedy in that gets you a type of laugh that is really meaningful. When you do really like gallows humor where you're going to something dark or bleak and finding a laugh there, that can be really cathartic and therapeutic for people that are going through that.
Yeah. Do you think that makes those jokes or those moments more memorable than one that's just kind of played for laughs?
You know, I think all laughs are part of a balanced diet. I think that if you're the type of person that looks down on fart jokes, I don't know that we can be pals. You know what I mean? Like, I think there is a space in your humor intake for things that are crass and silly and frivolous.
Yeah.
But I know that it diminishes the soul to not be able to find humor in those things that are very deep and profound, whether that's grappling with, you know, the nature of how to be a good person and good and evil, or whether that's, you know, facing our own mortality. A lot of those jokes that are in those deep places, I think, actively improve life in a different way, not a better way, but in a different way that is, I think, necessary.
Yeah, so it's almost like just this idea of, and I think this can be applied to any part of life, but just this idea of being well-rounded. You know, like if you're looking for your comedy and you want to be well-rounded, you'll, of course, like everybody loves a good "that's what she said" joke, you know. But at the same time, you also, those moments, like I always think it's so incredible when you look at some of these larger stand-ups and like their father passes away, or something like that happens, and they're literally up on stage the next night telling a joke about how their dad died. Like, I think there's something that is cathartic and just kind of helps you to work through those emotions where, like, not everybody is going to be able to appreciate that, but I think that maybe there's somebody in that audience that their parent just passed away recently or something, and that joke, for whatever reason, gets them to laugh for the first time in 2 months. You know, like moments like that, I think, are so beautiful.
They're really meaningful, and finding ways to laugh when you really need it are so significant. I think as a comedian too, when you can help somebody in that place, that's like the most noble form that your profession can take. I'll make a comparison here, and this is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but one thing I love when you listen to musicians talk about music, we as consumers have this idea about different types of music, right? Of like, oh, I don't listen to country, or I'd never listen to, you know, rock or oldies or hip hop or whatever. But when you listen to musicians, no matter what genre the musician's working in, they listen to everything. And I guarantee you, if there is a brilliant, like, country star, they listen to hip hop and rock and roll and classical, and same for, you know, like, and you can read any magazine interview and you'll see people being like, oh, I'm informed by this, and even though I'm in this specific genre, I think comedy is the exact same way. If you're a comedian and you really care. Your favorite dry wit loves slapstick. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Your favorite goofy prop comic has a favorite comedic essay that they love. Like, when you really care about this and you're committed to it, I think that those things of like, oh, I don't listen to country, or like, oh, I don't like broad humor. That's, and this is going to sound really snobbish of me to say, but that's something that I think people that consume more passively get into.
Okay.
People that aren't really connected to the art form in a personal way.
Yeah.
It's a way to kind of put up a tribal marker of like, I'm this kind of person. I like this stuff. But if you love it in a deep, passionate way, you find the good parts of all of it.
Yeah. I mean, a Nelly and Tim McGraw song, I mean, come on.
Like, listen to Old Town Road. Like, my God.
Yeah.
Like, the most brilliant stuff is interdisciplinary. So for me, doing comedy, like, there's, a dumb pun, a bad, something topical, a bad piece of slapstick, like, all of that is great. And you can find incredible instances of all of it. So I think that, like, whatever type of humor it is, whatever the subject matter is, you can find people who have nailed it and enriched comedy as an art form through doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of get into D&D a little bit before we get into Dimension 20 specifically. I want to just kind of continue this conversation we've been having, kind of about writing and improv and comedy and things like that. How do you feel like those experiences that you've had with working at UCB and now with College Humor and growing up the way that you did, how do you feel like that kind of plays into your playing style and your GMing style when it comes to playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, it's been such a weird full circle journey, man. I was playing D&D as a kid. I was LARPing as a kid. And, there's a ton of creative work that goes into being a DM, both improvisationally and in terms of writing and preparation. And I remember, it's like, the line I got from very supportive parents at the time was like, oh, this is so awesome and so great. And you know what, Bren? The skills you're developing playing this game of D&D, you're going to be able to apply that in whatever you end up doing. And lo and behold, I don't need to translate those skills at all. They are... they don't... There's no translation. It's the exact skills. It's... which is nuts, man. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
Look, anyone listening to this, you got to know that, every day it's just an insane, humbled gratitude that I get to go to work and plan and set up games of D&D to run them. This is nobody could deserve this life. It is pure dumb luck, and I'm just so insanely grateful to College Humor and all the awesome people that come and play the game to get to be able to do this. To answer the question, I took a more circuitous route. I was writing LARPs. I've been running D&D my whole life. I'm still running a home game that's been going on for 10 years
Oh,
now.
wow.
Yeah.
Is that all homebrewed?
That's a 3.5 homebrew. That's my own campaign setting.
Awesome.
I've almost always used my own campaign settings, with the exception of Planescape.
Okay.
But the main thing of I got time to go to college. I went to college at SVA for screenwriting. Went to college at SUNY Ulster for philosophy, and effectively, I was 21 in New York. Graduated from school. Nobody knew who I was, and I was just bartending. It was like a couple of years of being a little bit aimless, and you're just scraping to get by. I had a bunch of dental stuff happen, and I didn't have insurance. And because we live in a nightmare country where if you don't have insurance and health stuff comes up, you're just like, oh, there goes like 3 years off your life while you're working off this debt, because a medical thing came up, and now you're like, so, there was a period of time where I was missing a front tooth in my head and working at a bar and just barely making ends meet. And, I got a job at a different bar where I started to make a little bit more money, and I went like, I got to make some moves, man. Years are passing by, and my career is zeros, nothing, So UCB was something that all of the cool people that I knew, the exciting people that were doing stuff that I knew were like, Brennan, you got to go take a UCB class. I went to UCB and started taking improv classes there as without any of this idea of like, I'm going to get on Herald Night. I'm going to start teaching there. It was literally like, maybe I'll make some friends.
Yeah.
maybe I'll meet some people that are working in this industry, and there will be some kind of, step in the right direction. And I once again was the recipient of insane good fortune, where I got put on a house team there very quickly into my time at the theater, which I was not anticipating, or really even, that was not my aim, insofar as I just wanted to be kind of moving in the right direction finally. Right. So when I used to joke when I was on Herald Night, I would say, you guys are doing improv, I'm still just LARPing. And because playing imagination is something that I've been doing my entire life. And for me, I had 12 years or 14 years of improv experience, not aimed at being funny, just at living in character and going on a quest.
Right.
And then UCB, where they're like, get laughs. And to me, I think being raised in a funny family and doing comedy, it's one of those weird things where, it's like that old thing about the two fish swimming along in the river, and an old fish says, hey boys, how's the water? And the two fish kind of go like, what the hell is water? Where like, you're so deeply embedded in something that you kind of take it for granted. Yeah. And comedy might have been that for me. I didn't think of I didn't think of comedy as the main thing I had to offer the world, because I've just been in it and around it so much. And then I got to UCB, and it was like, hey, you can do this. It was not something I was confident in or believed was like, oh, this is my thing. I was, maybe even a little surprised to find like, oh, this is something that I can do. So all that D&D and LARP stuff ended up being this bedrock where I got to focus on doing it comedically for the first time, because making stuff up fast had not been an issue for me, because that had been all I'd been doing for so long.
Yeah, so it was almost like you joked about how your mom said, you're going to learn all these skills and then you're going to be able to apply them to the rest of your life. And you're like, well, I didn't really have to do that. But you kind of did it in reverse, where it was almost like you had all these skills from LARPing and D&D and role-playing, and then you almost took those skills and just kind of had to just kind of mold them a little bit, and maybe almost like change your mindset as to what you thought improv was. Because I think role-playing and improv are very, very closely related. Role-playing just sometimes is not all comedy. It can be dramatic or whatever, and improv is generally used to get laughs. So kind of combining those two things, and like, let's say you've got role-playing at the bottom of a triangle, you've got improv on the other bottom, and those two are coming up to a point and just kind of having those meet.
100%. And that's what has felt so bizarrely full circle about this is, in going to UCB, there was this weird moment where I never stopped playing D&D, but there was this thing of going into comedy and performance where I was like, okay, I shall, what's like the Bible verse? Like, leave behind childish things. Like,
oh yeah.
I was like, okay, that's a game that I play that's personally fulfilling, but I got to go make some moves and try to make a career. And then it eventually resulted in me getting the referral to College Humor. And then within a week of working at College Humor, I'm sitting talking to the execs being like, how do you want to run a D&D show? And there's a part of me that's like, what? Like, I came all this way and did all this improv to come back. I could have just stayed focusing on D&D. But of course, they never would have known about me. I never would have been in that position unless I had done this multiple year, not detour, but this sort of pilgrimage into strict comedic improvisation and performance, to then come home to running D&D in this new renaissance and revival of Dungeons and Dragons coming back into the center of culture.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for just a second, and then we'll get right into Dimension 20 and what you guys are doing with that. But what do you think about, like I said, we're the same generation. When we were kids, and you even talked about this briefly, Dungeons and Dragons was not a cool thing, you know. Like if you were at school and you told somebody you played D&D, they would you'd probably end up getting a swirly or something. So what has it been like for you personally to kind of watch something that you've loved as a child now turn into something that is not only gaining popularity, but it's becoming almost a huge part of what pop culture is? I mean, you've got people like Joe Manganiello and Vin Diesel who are now openly talking about their love for D&D and playing in these games, and you've got all these celebrities that are like, oh yeah, I love D&D, or you've got these celebrities that are like, I've never played D&D, but what you're doing looks fun and I want in on it. What has that been like for you to see that kind of develop?
1,000% awesome. It has been I mean, look, we have to acknowledge that there in a lot of nerdy circles, whether it's comics or D&D or gaming or whatever, as nerddom has moved more and more into the center of pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's be real. Comic-Con is a pop culture convention.
Right.
It sets the agenda for the year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you look at the biggest, highest grossing franchises, what people give their money to, literally
mm-hmm.
what they give their hard work and effort to entertain them and to be the stories that matter to them, it is Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Avengers, the MCU, these things that are lasers and magic and swords. These are not fringe interests.
Yeah.
These are the beating heart of global culture.
Mm-hmm.
And as this influx of people has moved into these nerdy spaces, for me, it's awesome. There are some people that react with bitterness to that try to gatekeep or go
mm-hmm.
oh, you guys are all fake gamers or whatever. I don't know what these people's deal is, man, because I remember the bad old times,
oh, yeah.
I remember swirly time. So the idea that the entire world has now recognized that what, older nerds have always known was fun is fun, that is only a good thing. Mm-hmm. The more the merrier. My God, how awesome.
Yeah.
To go from better, keep it secret, keep it safe, to suddenly being and also, listen, I have a vested interest in this. The fact that culture has embraced D&D is literally putting bread on my table.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
right.
I can only go this is amazing and what a boon, what an incredible thing. And also on a more, I guess, non-personal level, on a general level, these, especially with D&D, which is a game that celebrates friendship and collaboration and group storytelling and being with people and creating a story together such that you are being creative and funny and caring and working together.
Yeah.
That game taking off feels like the perfect antidote to a lot of negative forces working in our culture today. To me,
oh, yeah.
D&D showing up on the cultural landscape in a big way is the wow, what a nerdy reference I'm about to make. It's like the Rohirrim showing up at the Battle of Pelennor Field. It is the cavalry arriving. Here comes D&D to remind us that making interpersonal connections with our fellow human beings is the point of being alive.
Brennan, I think you just solved the United States problems. I think what we need to do is just buy a ton of 5th edition player handbooks and just send them to Congress.
Mitch, look, Senator McConnell, you have to work together to get out of this tomb of ultimate evil. And end of the day, yeah. Well,
oh my goodness. AOC, would you like to cast Fireball?
Oh, AOC would rule at D&D.
Oh, yeah.
She'd be awesome.
Yeah.
This is me putting out into the universe the Secret style, that if AOC ever wants to have a game run for her, I will run a game for AOC and whatever other freshman Congress people want a game run for them.
I am totally tagging her on Twitter when I post this episode, and we're going to make this happen. It started here. Started here,
folks. You heard it here first.
All right. Well, let's get into Dimension 20. So your first season that you guys had come out was called Fantasy High, which is just a concept that when I was introduced to it, I was like, this is kind of the most amazing thing that I've ever heard of. So where did this idea come from to place characters, classes, races, magic, all of this stuff that is in Dungeons and Dragons in what's kind of like a 50s style high school where you've got your stupid bullies and you've got your jocks and you've got people with leather jackets and you're driving around in Mustangs. Like, where did this whole concept come from?
Oh man. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. We're really proud of it. And we have some free episodes up on YouTube, and the full season's out right now on Dropout. If anyone's interested in seeing it, we're really proud of it because it basically is. All right, look, I'll relate it back to what we were just talking about in terms of where this idea came from, which is basically a lot of the comedy that you see dealing with D&D, dealing with nerd stuff, is always at Dungeons and Dragons expense, right? Like when you see it in like a sitcom, or you see it in a movie, it's always like, I'm a goblin. What? Like I'm going to use my dagger? And there's kind of this tone to all of it of like, isn't this crazy? But as we just talked about, how many years does culture need to be dominated by sci-fi and fantasy before we can all kind of like look at each other with sober eyes and go, being a goblin's not that crazy. Yeah. Like we all know what goblins are. No one's that tickled by this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, we all buy it. We all buy Jedi. We all know what lightsabers are. Mm-hmm. We all know about Game of Thrones. We all know about Harry Potter. Like, why are we all acting like this is so twee and crazy? It's all of our favorite stuff. Yeah. So looking at that, it was like, okay, College Humor's brand is comedy. We want to do a D&D actual play. Mm-hmm. We cannot do what other comedies have done and try to mine laughs by being self-deprecating or ironic or tongue-in-cheek. I don't want to do a show where we are kind of mocking what we're doing. Yeah. You know, like you see a lot of stand-ups will get up on a stage and they'll be like, can you believe what I'm wearing tonight? I look like this kind of guy. Right. And you're like, dude, you put that on. Yeah. You picked it out of your closet. I'm not fooled, right? Yeah. Like, have some faith and some courage in what you're doing. Right. So if you're not going to mine the comedy from making fun of it, where's the comedy going to come from? Because we can't just do a straight game of D&D. Right. So what I wanted to do was say, if we create a setting that is inherently goofy and absurd and has contradictions in it, what we then have the freedom to do is deeply commit to the truth of it. Yeah. Which I know sounds like a contradiction, but it's like, the more absurd your world is, the more you can do what any good sitcom actor would do and commit hard to the character, right? Mm-hmm. You look, I just was watching Barry on HBO, which is so good. So good, right? And it's like, okay, it's a hitman that wants to be an actor, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go, okay, that's an insane situation. As long as we commit hard to that, it's going to be funny. Right. We don't need to make fun of it. It's already silly. And when something's already silly, you got to double down. Yeah. So that's what Fantasy High was about, was going, if we take a classic D&D game, but set it in our fantasy version of Evanston, Illinois, and do the Breakfast Club, Pretty Pink, Ferris Bueller treatment of these fantasy tropes, we'll be finding comedy nonstop in those contradictions and juxtapositions of those two worlds, and everybody will have the freedom to just deeply commit to a character that already has a strong game.
I honestly cannot say that I've ever listened to or watched another D&D game where somebody climbs into a corn monster's butthole.
You know, that's what we're out here doing, Jared. We're trying to find things that have been done before. You know, slaying a dragon, yawn. Sitting here, fighting an evil, witch king. We've heard it before. Episode 2, Fantasy High.
Oh my
you
gosh.
will see one of the heroes jump up a corn blob's butthole, and that's a promise. That's a Dimension 20 guarantee.
I'm telling you, as I was watching through this first season, all of a sudden, like, I got to that point and I just like physically lost it. Like, I could not control my laughter, that I was just laughing so hard. And not only that it was happening, but that it was the ball that was going up the corn blob's butt. And like, I just like, I think that's exactly what you're talking about, is the world that you've created. The comedy is inherent to the world, so you don't really have to like think about these things. You're like, oh, it's a cafeteria, we're in Illinois, there's corn, of course there would be a corn monster. It just kind of like, it fits into that world. But you take that corn monster and have that situation and you put it in the Fallen Realms or something like that, then it's not, it feels like you're trying too hard. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, a lot of that, and this is actually funny just to tie it back, a lot of this is based in UCB's methodology of comedy, which relates to the idea of game, right? The idea that we find and create comedy when we take a baseline reality. So you take whatever your normal is, which normal can be our everyday life, or normal can be high fantasy, right? Yeah. And then you introduce this unusual element to it, and you create this sort of like perpetual motion machine. There's just an engine in your scene or in your movie or in whatever form of art you're making that has a structure that is self-perpetuating. So you go, okay, we got teen adventurers at a high school for heroes. We know that there's evil magic in the cafeteria. We know that there is, the cars run on elementals bound into the engine. We know that there's tieflings and elves and dragonborn and gnomes. Mm-hmm. All of this just proceeds logically, right? And it makes it easy for people to, I think, hook into the story, because they're going like, on a gut level, they're going, this is crazy. Like, there's a corn blob that's like, there's a cream corn monster coming out of a keg in the cafeteria. But on an intellectual level, they're doing what you're describing, which is going, no, logically this follows.
Yeah.
Like, given the rules you've set up, this is what would happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think one of the cool things about D&D in general, but I think specifically Fantasy High, is that this is a campaign that I watch, and first of all, I can see myself in these characters, which I think is great. Like, Emily's character is like that, just kind of that punk tiefling is like what I always wanted to be. Like, I always wanted to be that rebel when I was in high school, but I like never had the opportunity because I grew up in a pretty strict conservative household. And so it was always like, got to get your grades in, got to do this. And so like seeing that character is like, oh, that's who I want to be. But then like, seeing the other characters, like you can see yourself in those characters, which I think is awesome. But I think it also, both, I would assume, as a player for your players in the cast, but also as a consumer of this show, it kind of gives us an opportunity to relive high school the way that we wanted to, where like I can totally cast a spell on that jock and make him pee himself for 24 hours straight. Like like that's this world that you've created, and it's just amazing.
I so appreciate that, man. Well, that's the thing is, I think something that all geeks can relate to is that there is an element of sci-fi and fantasy that is that like escapist, like a strange world with new things and how exciting. But also, I forget who said it, but there's some quote that talks about like why dragons? Why are dragons necessary?
Yeah.
And what it said is like, when you're telling a story, there's always a remove. It's set in the past. There's a little bit of a remove. There's a little bit of a distance, right?
Yeah.
But if I tell you about like a really hard challenge I went through, it might not hit you like it's supposed to hit you emotionally.
Okay.
So I'm going to describe it as a dragon, because that's what I need you to understand that it felt like. It didn't It didn't feel like X, Y, or Z. It didn't feel like this little weird work email I got or this other thing. The challenges in my life feel like dragons, and they feel like necromancers plotting against me. And this metaphor, this like shared common mythology of fantasy and sci-fi that we all have, is a way, I think, of using a fiction to tell a deeper truth about how we all really feel about the life we're living.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, as you're describing that, there's a comic that comes to my mind that does this so beautifully. Have you read the book I Kill Giants?
No, I haven't, but I've heard it. It's been recommended to me.
Oh man, you've got to check it out. They actually they did kind of an independent movie adaptation of it, which I absolutely loved. So if you want to check that out first to kind of get an idea of the story before, I guess, diving into the comic, or do vice versa. But it's a collected graphic novel. And I know you talked about how you're not so much there to grab each single issue each week, but you love graphic novels. This is an absolute must read. When people come to me and they say, hey, I really have been thinking about getting into comics, but it's just, there's so much. Where do I even start? That is one of the top 5 books that I will recommend to anybody, because it's got something for everybody, and it's not going to intimidate you with its art style or its storytelling style or anything like that. Whereas, like, if someone says, hey, I want to get into DC Comics, where do I start? It's like, I mean, we've got 75, 80 years of continuity that we're talking about here. So, like, what kind of stories do you want? Whatever. And there's just a lot to sift through to find something that you want. But with an independent story, with a one-shot graphic novel, things like that, you don't have to worry about any history before. You don't have to worry about anything that's going to come after. You can just fully envelop yourself in this one story and just lose yourself in the story. And without giving any spoilers, the title I Kill Giants is about this girl who believes that she is seeing giants and that she needs to slay them. And it is very much a story that is told in a way that is exactly what you were just describing. So I think you would absolutely love this book. So I would highly recommend picking it up, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on it after you read it. But I think that's so true, is just this idea of taking something that is not living in the year 2019 in the United States of America with Donald Trump as your president, and saying, okay, well, what if we lived in a world where Batman was president, but it's still our, like, just like changing things, or like you said specifically, like the dragons and stuff. You guys, all of our listeners, if you haven't watched Dimension 20, if you haven't watched this first Fantasy High season, you guys need to go watch this, especially if you're into Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to laugh your butt off, if you want, Brennan, your storytelling is just incredible on this show, and that combined with just the ability for the cast members and the players to just kind of roll with whatever you throw at them, I just think is awesome.
So appreciate that, man. And I think to your point too, that idea of like these self-contained stories, like, it's one of the nice things about Dimension 22, just to fully plug the show, just in a gross way, you head over to dropout.tv and check out Dimension 20. What I would recommend about it, that in terms of that accessibility, is that it is an anthology show. So, for example, our first season, Fantasy High, is a self-contained story. It's 17 episodes. It's about 30 hours of content. And by the end of those 30 hours, we have begun, middled, and ended a story. And it's a full campaign that has that feeling of a successful conclusion.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, I think that can be something that's like, in addition to being a comedy, we're also this anthology show, which I think can be easy for people if you've never watched D&D, never watched an actual play show, that we are kind of a good, I think, gateway into that genre, because our stories are a little bit, our episodes are 2 hours, which sounds like a long amount of time, but in the actual play sphere, we are, I think, a little bit more digestible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, most of my D&D sessions that I play with the people that, like, when I was in Michigan, my group that we had there, I mean, there were nights where we would start at 6 and we would go until 1 a.m. I mean, you're talking 7 hours of playtime. For my birthday in March, my DM for our campaign in Michigan threw me an all-day D&D birthday party one-shot where we started at 10 a.m. and played till 10 p.m. So you think about 2 hours, like...
Hell yeah.
That, I mean, that's something that, especially for me living in Houston now, where having a commute time of an hour is not that abnormal. You can listen to half the episode on your way to work and half the episode on your way home.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely true.
So let's dig into this upcoming season that is coming out. You've got season 2 that is getting ready to launch at the end of this month. It is going to have people like Matt Mercer from Critical Role. It's going to have Rekha Shankar, Mike Trapp, you obviously as well. It's going to be called Escape from Bloodkeep. What can you tell our listeners about this new campaign?
So this is our first Dimension 20 side quest, which are basically shorter, more compact stories that, due to their sort of reduced size, although there's still multiple episodes per side quest season, we're able to get a bunch of friends to come and play at the table. You know, we record them real quick, and we just go ham for a couple days and make these campaigns. This one, Escape from the Bloodkeep, I do not remember a time I've had this much fun playing D&D.
Yeah.
By the time this podcast comes out, the first episode will already be up on Dropout.
Yep.
And as you were saying, we got Matt Mercer, we got Erica Ishii, we got Iffy Wadiwe, we got Amy Vorpal, Mike Trapp and Rekha Shankar are playing from College Humor. And basically the story that we're telling in Escape from the Bloodkeep is the 6 generals of the Lord of Shadows. So these 6 incredibly powerful evil lieutenants of an army of darkness have to contend with the events immediately following the destruction of their Dark Lord. Why is their Dark Lord destroyed? Well, a couple of halflings throw his crown of shadows into an unattended volcano. If that sounds familiar to you, boy, will you enjoy this season of Dimension 20.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Well, Brennan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been an absolute blast just getting to geek out with you a little bit, talk about D&D, talk about philosophy. It's just been an absolute delight. All of our listeners, go to dropout.tv right now, sign up, and start watching Dimension 20. You will not be disappointed. By the time this episode airs, the very first episode of Escape from the Bloodkeep will be up on dropout.tv. So make sure that you start watching that. It's going to be a ton of Brennan and College Humor amazingness. Go do that right now. For our show, you can find everything on our website at thecomicbookhq.com. There you will be able to find all of our stuff, from our episodes to our reviews to all of our social media links. On Facebook, we are at The Comic Book HQ. On Instagram and Twitter, we are at Comic Book HQ. And we would love for you guys to write into the show. You can do that at letters@thecomicbookhq.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, your comments, your questions, all that good stuff. We'd also love for you to head over to iTunes. First of all, if you like the show, subscribe to it. And if you like the show, we would love for you to leave us a review there as well. And most importantly, word of mouth is huge with something like a podcast, especially one that is kind of in a niche area like comic books and nerdy stuff. So tell all your friends. It's the best way that you can help support the show. I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I've been Jared. You guys have a good one.